Good evening, everyone, and welcome to your City Commission study session. Please silence or turn off your phones during the meeting. Just a reminder that meetings are televised every day on Channel 2 at 6 p.m. and midnight and available for your viewing pleasure on YouTube. So tonight's study session, we've got some great things planned for tonight. First up is Alert Sense presentation by Leavenworth County Emergency Management. Come on up. I'm excited about this.
Come on down.
Come on down. You're the next contestant.
So this is, the reason Chucka and Zach are here is directly related to, I know this is primarily of Mayor Pittman, but also some of you else as well, is to provide some kind of an additional communication system to our residents and business owners about texting to their phones for just regular routine business stuff, but there's also an emergency feature as well. There's an opt-in feature, which they will go over and all that, but when you guys talked about us looking into this, we started looking into it, and the county was like, we have that, and it's free, so it's like, hey, let's bring you guys down and have to talk.
Free is good.
Yeah, so take it away, guys.
Well, welcome. We're glad you're here.
Well, we appreciate the invite, and like Scott said, we sat down with him and your staff and discussed and showed them how the system works. Alert Sense is what it was normally called, so when we talk about Alert Sense, they've been bought out by Connexus now. So you'll hear us talk about Connexus. It's the same thing as Alert Sense. In the bags that I provided you folks is actually a flyer in there for public sign up for the Alert Sense. And if we have, and that, Commissioner Martin, that would be the third one over, says Leavenworth County. So that would be the one that we'd be looking at.
Gotcha.
So we came about, Alert Sense is, you've probably heard it called reverse 911. There's been a lot of different mass notification systems out. The county went with this system in 2019, and it served us well. One of the things that we're lacking is trying to get public sign-up, and that's the hardest thing to work through that. So Alert Sense, that's what I'm going to talk to, because that's the flyer that we have. It's a very good tool for the toolbox. And we use this for mass notification countywide, where you can make it for a specific area. In your case, what we would do is give administrative rights to your staff to be able to provide those alerts throughout the city. So we used to have cable override when we say no parking on emergency snow routes. You can actually do that now with Alert Sense to be able to do that. And how that works is that I know there's a lot of folks that do not have the hardwired phones any longer, but there's a lot out there that still have voice over IP telephone systems and things of that nature, which this works off of. The company that we're contracted with, they obtain the 911 data file for the entire county, all cities included, to include Fort Leavenworth. And that data file goes into the system. So anybody that has a telephone number, to include City Hall, they would get that alert if they're in that particular area that we have selected. We've used this on a number of occasions. Boil orders. If we have a boil order, we can implement that by putting in a simple message. And the simple message would, if we have an evacuation, if we tell people that, hey, it's flooding at Riverfront Community Center, please do not enter this particular area, we can send that message out, and people will get it immediately. And when I say immediately, they're going to get it in 3 different ways. They're going to get it in telephone or cell phone, they're going to get it via text, and they're going to get it via email. And all 3 of them go out at the same time. So, we have used it in the county searching for lost children. We've had that on the south end of the county where we've used that. We used it just recently on a major grass fire that we had to evacuate. Was 25 homes? 25 homes in a particular area. So we were able to do that rather than going out and knocking on doors. We were able to select this particular area to tell folks that, hey, you need to leave, and this is where where you need to go. So
Can I ask, did all those people in that area, had they opted in, or you just already had their contact information?
some of them have opted in. Some of them they got on their telephones.
Okay,
Actually,
okay.
voice override. There was a handful of folks that did not. What's nice about the system is that you can actually go back and it'll tell you how many people that actually reached. So, you know, if you're doing a citywide broadcast, whatever it might be, it'll actually show those numbers. And when I say numbers, we're talking about just tally numbers, not actual phone numbers. We as administrators can go in and look to find out who was actually notified that. We also use that system for, think of it as group texting. We use that for like all of our volunteers to tell them to go out and go weather spotting. Fire departments use it for alerting for training. Just there's a number of different areas that we'd be able to break that down for the city to be able to utilize. We can use it for just, you know, general messaging, or you can also utilize it for, we're having a staff meeting at XYZ, or a special council meeting on XYZ, and it just wants staff to be notified. That's capability. In talking with Scott, they didn't know if, you know, you would be quite interested in it at that time, and that's fine, but that option's there. And we would train the staff on how to do that. So the only thing you're out of is training of the staff. So some of the things that you also can use, let's say that Chief Kitchens or even Chief Birch has what we call a hot zone, you know, that we don't want nobody in that particular area. We can zero it in to the map and draw a polygon, a circle, a square, whatever it is in that particular area. And I'm going to let Zach kind of show this real quick.
It's like, this is in a nutshell, like how some kind of alert was going to be sent. We would just go to this send alert, and then everything that you need to fill in is on this list, and it's pretty easy to go through. It's pretty self-explanatory. You can even add select templates if you want a pre-scripted message in there for something. You can input that in there, and then instead of typing it out yourself, you just select that, and it'll automatically populate everything that you filled out already. And essentially, you just click that, and if you have everything filled out already, just click send at the end, and then pretty much 2 buttons, and you're done.
So if we were signed up for one of those, I would have gotten a text about the red flag warning. You guys sent that out to everybody?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
You can identify it as an emergency or non-emergency, you know, if just training or something. The sender, their stuff would be up in here, and whenever we send it out, it automatically comes to the EOC's main line. So that's a good number for people to know, hey, you know, it's not a spam, it's our main line. So, and that's just automatically inputted on it. And scrolling down, recipients, internal contact, if you know, your pre-groups, like we have emergency management, our spotters, and our volunteers, and we can click that, and it'll go out to 40 of our spotters. So, and I don't have to click on each individual individually, but, or if you wanted to do the public directory, you can just click this, and it'll.
I'll understand, we can't do the public directory because we don't want to send out the false message. But go ahead and show on the mapping.
And the maps, you just click add map tab on the button. Second pull up. And you could just zoom in to wherever you want it to be. This little guy right here should do this.
So just take, yeah.
Just do Justice Center. Address, Justice Center. And you can draw a map on that. Go to the wonderful rulers and you can draw it. You can do a circle, a donut, freehand it. The shapes are what it's going to draw. Say if we wanted to circle, it'll do an area 1. If you want to do a 2-mile radius, we'll say you can do 2 miles and then create area. And then from that location.
So everywhere it's blue.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So it'll reach anybody in that side of that blue 0 or the blue circle. So.
It also has the capability, and I'm going to go back to Chief Kitchens again. Let's say that they have a hostage scenario going on somewhere. They can make the donut, and the donut allows everything on the outskirts, but anything right in the middle. That way the perpetrator inside would not get the message.
Oh,
So it protects the law enforcement folks, but they can still, on the same basis, protect the citizens and not allowing them to let them know what's going on, give them the message, and then the internal part, it would not give. They would have to actually physically go out and knock on the doors for that.
And like in this case, it would reach approximately to 4,263, and that's through both the phone, if they have the My Alert apps and stuff, and then the emergency 911 stuff. So you're going to reach 4,200 people,
wow.
or means of.
Some type of means of
Right.
notification.
Does it tell you like, if they bounce back or if it's not valid
If
at the end?
as like the user and me,
Yeah.
I can go in there, and the people who have the higher ups, I can go in there and then it'll tell me it reached this many people. It'll say these phone numbers didn't work, these emails didn't work for whatever reason.
Okay, so you can clean it up after.
It also gives a report on, so say if it gets sent to my cell phone and I open it, it says Scott Peterson opened it.
Oh, okay.
So
So we
that
know
way
how many
they-
people actually
Yeah.
voted.
Yeah.
Yes.
It'll tell you if they picked up, answered a phone. It'll tell you how long they were on the phone for before they hung it up. So pretty cool little app they got.
Is this the same system that Fort Leavenworth is using?
I think, I don't quote me, but I think it's called Tech, but it's a similar system.
Yeah.
There's a number of folks out there that have similar products.
Yeah.
We liked AlertSense for one. It was a fairly new, but it was a product that was very reasonable in pricing, and that pricing still has not gone out of sight. There's other ones out there, Everbridge, there's Reverse 911, and the list goes on and on. We're inundated with phone calls at least monthly of folks that want to get into our system, because we have it working as a well-oiled machine when we go through the processing. So I feel that it would, let's go back to the one that we did for the message on the evacuation, if we can find it.
Do you use this for tornado watches and tornado warnings?
And that's a good question, Commissioner. What's nice is the public signs up, and that is the hardest thing to do. So I'm hoping that with your public information, folks can get out there and start broadcasting this. I mean, we have it on our website, we have it on the sheriff's website, and all the fire departments are trying to do that. Every time we have a public showing, we always try to push these papers that you have in front of you here. But when you talk about weather, it does give you weather, and then the individuals can actually select what weather they want to hear. It's always going to give you a tornado warning, but you can get it down to severe thunderstorm warning, flood warning, in your personal preferences on how you work. What's really nice about this is that there's a box up there that if you as an individual click it, it'll follow you. My wife and I went to Texas, and I share this story. We went to Texas, I had it on my phone. We were just outside San Antonio, and tornado warning was issued. And my phone went off, and I told my wife, I said, we need to seek shelter. And she goes, are you sure? I said, well, I'm just going by what my phone says. We stopped at a convenience store there, asked if we could use our cooler. The guy says, we're not aware of any tornado warnings. I said, well, I feel confident the ones, and I was able to look at radar too. And we were in there, and that tornado actually passed a quarter mile south of where we were at. So once it's clear, once you drive out of it, you're okay. When I say drive out of it, drive out of the range of the polygon that the National Weather Service puts together. So there's a lot of positive things that the general public would get out of that as well.
So they download this app, this AlertSense app, is that how they do it? And then
All you got to do is take the Q code and put it in your phone, and immediately you can sign up on it. It's very quick and convenient for the general public to use that. Now, we have some folks that, have issues with technology and stuff like that, and that's all good. We help them get through that process.
doing it now.
So yeah, and you don't need the app. The app is one way to receive that information, but you can also sign up for it online, and it will just text you. There's a voice calling system that, whatever you call it, an AI phone person voice will read out the message to you.
Correct.
So say an elderly resident that doesn't want to use an app but still wants that information can still get it.
Okay.
How many folks in the city have signed up? Do you know?
We would have to look at, we really don't know that for a fact.
Yeah, but I know there's a lot signed up for
Yeah.
both the public side and the employee side, I guess if you want to say it.
I mean, we got a population of 81,000, and of course, not every child has a phone, so that
Really?
population, yeah, most. But I think last time we looked, we had, was it 8,000 some odd?
Position on public contacts is 1477.
Well, that's just on the area that you had selected, I think.
So it's free.
It's free.
Okay. So I want I don't know what the other commissioners think, but I would like to do things like, not only for in tornado warnings and thunderstorms, but for our events. So Easter egg hunt, can you do those type of things too? Sign up here with a link to click in. There's a water break on a certain area. Can we do that?
Yep,
Okay.
yep, by all means.
So we can basically use it how we see fit, and you'll build like, will you build like a border for us or for the city, or how?
You guys, we would show you how to do that.
Okay.
We would show your staff how to do that. Because in the city, you would have to draw the city boundaries, if you would, with that. If you did a circle, which is okay, just take the center part of the city and just circle it out, you might catch some Lansing folks and some Fort Leavenworth folks, which wouldn't make any difference,
So we
but
could just-
depending on what your message
Yeah.
is. So if you actually hand drew it, just to get a pretty good idea, that message would go out, and you would have that control to be able to do that. Again, as Zach showed you, there's an emergency, and then there's a non-emergency.
Right.
You would want to send that as a non-emergency, because it's not priority. When you hit emergency, the wireless carriers put that into another category. But if it's in a non-emergency, if it's a real busy, using Mother's Day for an example, it may not go out right away.
Okay.
And I would recommend that if we adopt this service, that we would even stay away from the emergency weather stuff, because if we adopt it from the city level,
Right.
and we're sending out city notifications, and they're going to pick up the county's emergency weather notifications anyways,
Right.
and that way they're not getting that information twice.
Correct.
So I would, from my perspective, I think the city staff would use it almost exclusively just for city news and city events, and then let the county handle the emergency weather.
Yeah, and understand that we do not do the emergency weather either. By signing up on the app, unless it's something that's bearing down on the city, we would tell people to take shelter, this is a very bad deal, whatever it happened to be. We'd do that. But the weather app portion of that would give them enough notification and ideas. The only reason I say that is that if we start crying wolf,
Yeah.
on a
Right.
situation, we don't want folks to see that.
Ignore it, right.
We don't want to say, well, emergency management said that we were gonna hit by a major flood, but, like back in '93, I'm dating myself here, when we had the flooding going on along Cherokee Street and, through downtown, that was pretty horrendous. And, one of the biggest things we caught out of that is nobody let us know. Well, we didn't have a way to let anybody know unless we knocked on their door. This way, we have that opportunity to do that. So things like that, we would make that notification on behalf of the city,
So would this sign up that you have here, this QR code, would that work for the city, or would the city have their own sign up for QR code? Will we have our
No,
own?
you would have that code right
Oh,
there.
you have that code,
Yeah.
okay.
What we would do, think it of as a parent and a child. We would make you guys a parent and then underneath us. So you would actually be a child under us, but you would be a parent of Leavenworth City.
Okay.
So anything you want put under Leavenworth City, you guys would have control of that.
So if we did our own, let's say, campaign of promoting this, getting people to sign up, go in the Rotary, the Lions Club, promote it, we can do that. We wouldn't need your permission, like, we'd all be separate. but the
No,
same-
yeah, no, that'd be perfect, because, like I say, once you set them up, we'll take your staff and set up however many subsections they want out of that. As Zach showed you, the ones at EOC had the Justice Center and things of that nature of listing. You guys would become one of those, the city of Leavenworth would become one of those subgroups out of that. Again, we'd be the administrators of that system, And the only thing we do is just manage it, for the most part.
Do
unless there's-
people sign up, so let's say someone just wants weather and doesn't want to know about community events, do they design that on their end, what they want to hear from the city? Or if they sign up, they're gonna get everything?
Yeah, they're gonna get anything that
Okay.
gets pushed through that particular system.
Okay. That's awesome. Do you have any questions? Ed's all deep in it, he's ready. He's ready for,
We can show you a demo real quick and
Yeah,
show you how fast
that'd
that
be great.
works. Scott, can we use your phone number again?
Yeah, go for it, yep.
We're gonna send Scott a message.
Yeah, so when they originally gave their presentation to Melissa and I, they used my phone number and they signed me up and I get
oh, you do?
alerts from them,
I'm
so.
gonna sign up tonight, right after Ed's done.
And I did not download the app and I still get
You do?
updates from them, so.
So right now he's clicking now they're gonna receive a voice, and they're gonna receive it on cell phone. Like I say, it'll also have business phones. Some people might put their own businesses in their home phone. He's gonna receive it via text and an email.
So I think you're already in there.
I should already be in there, yes.
Just
I think it's
individual probably.
none.
Yeah, it'd be a public directory.
Let's go to the future.
I think it is internal directory.
City. Apple.
Really, it's not this difficult.
Put me
Just
on
trying
the
to
spot,
find,
that's why.
trying to
If let's-
find one
I don't know.
individual.
I'm erring on the side of caution because I don't want to send something.
I know, that's what I'm thinking too.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want, Scott, you want your phone number across YouTube?
Here, just do mine. Sorry, Scott.
That's all right.
I know you're in there.
I get them, so I know I'm in there somewhere, but.
I cannot just select. Where's your name?
Can you just put my name in there? Internal groups.
There.
There we go.
So.
Yep.
Is that your?
That's it.
current one?
Yep.
Sweet. That. I just did test.
So
You could
attachments, you can add a photo, you
Yep.
can add
You can
a.
add a photo.
Wow, okay.
You can
And
add
you can-
Picture.
a flyer if you have
Yeah,
a flyer.
flyer.
And if you wanted to schedule something in the future, you could always click and then pick the date that you wanted to go out. I use that for our volunteers every other week.
Right.
We'll send it out and I'll just schedule it, because we do that at 7:00. And then it's good to do a quick preview. It'll be me sending it out, just the alert test and test, and then send, and you're like, it'll do its thing. And it's basically gonna come up, you're about to send this alert, there's one person, one contact in there, and it's gonna go through the mobile app, email, text message, and voicemail. If he's got all that, or you want to send it, and just do that, and it's sent successfully.
And then
So
your
it
phone
told
will go
him
crazy.
right there that it went through. So in saying that,
There it is.
there we are. So,
And-
outdoor warning siren, I'm sorry, to the general public.
For the ones, like if you want to, kind of like you were asking, like who got it or whatever, this here, just on where the summary of it, you can just
Yeah.
scroll down to delivery. It's sent to an email, one
Yeah.
email, and it was 100% successful.
Yeah.
Text message, the same way, voicemail, it's still pending. He answered, so.
Oh,
And then if there was unsubscribed, then they'd be in there. But like I said, it really breaks it down. If you want to know if it went through and how many failed, it won't tell you why. I mean, it'll just say that, but maybe it was some digit entered wrong or something. And the person no longer has that email.
And you can, as a user, opt out of, like, say, I don't want to get a text, an app, and a voicemail. I can just say, I just want apps, right?
Yeah, you can put that into the preferences.
But whenever we send it out, we'll send it out to everything.
Right.
Yeah, if you just want to send it to emails only and not wake people up at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm just using that for an example. It'll send that email and or that text.
Right.
You don't have to use the phone.
I would not want to be woken up to that alarm. That would scare me.
Well, my wife's probably wondering what's going on because it rang at home too.
Oh, it did? Oh, my goodness. That's funny. Commissioners, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
I'm excited. I'm all in for this, so,
So one of the things that we'll just have to designate staff administration, and then those folks, you know, whether it be Melissa, whether it be Penny, and yourself, whoever, we'll get that worked out. But as soon as you guys agree to go forward with it, just let us know, and between myself, Zach, and Rachel, we'll get you guys trained up on it and ready to use.
Sounds like we have consensus you'd like us to pursue. So, okay.
Yep. So,
We will do that then.
okay.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
I appreciate you guys.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very awesome feature. And the best part is it's free.
Makes things a lot easier.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. All right, next up, Leavenworth County Development Corporation, LCDC.
Hello.
All right, thanks for having me.
Welcome back. Thank you. I feel like you're just here,
I know, do too.
but it might have been the economic roundtable.
Oh, that's what it was, yes.
Do you have a presentation you want us to put up, or?
It should be on that.
Oh, I'm
Right on the
sorry.
desktop.
Oh,
Yep.
Let's do this.
Here we go.
We'll get you set up.
Okay,
Should be good to go. You get the mouse.
okay,
Do you want it full screen?
yeah.
It's a PDF, so
Oh, it is, okay,
that may be the full screen.
yeah. Oh, that's fine.
That may be the best we're gonna get.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
Thank
there we
you.
go.
Well, most of you have heard, thank you for having me today. Most of you have heard a lot of this. I will try to be brief on some of it. As you all know, I'm Lisa Hack. I'm the Executive Director for Leavenworth County Development Corporation. Let's see, I've been with LCDC since 2017 and moved into the role of Director in 2023. So, we go. Or 22, sorry, I'm on my third year.
Time flies, when you're having fun.
All right, so we have a new president since the last time I was here doing an update. Brian Habian is now our president. As you may know, we have a 25 on our board of directors. I think it might be 26 now. And of those, there's 20 private sector and 5 public sector. So each of the cities of Lansing, Leavenworth, and Tonganoxie have a seat, and now the county on our board. We have 5 executive committee members, and that's where the officers are. We've got Brian Habian as the president, and then, of course, we have the 3 staff, myself, Diana, and Mary. And as you know, as I've said over and over, we facilitate the creation and retention of jobs and capital investment in Leavenworth County. We do that through business attraction and business retention and expansion. Oops, one more, too fast. So with business attraction, we do that through several ways. We have a professional website. We are active on social media. We send out email blasts to over 300 real estate agents, site consultants, developers all through the United States. And this is an example of one of our flyers that we'll send in through one of those. And this, what's missing on here is the clickable link to look at the drone footage of the park. And then we've done snail mailers as well. We've done that, and we also do marketing trips. I'll talk about that in just a minute. And we go to networking events in and around Kansas City area. And then we respond to RFIs, and those are requests for information. Those are notifications from our partners that say, hey, we're working with a client that's looking for 50 acres to build a facility and hire 150 people for this manufacturing company. And so we'll kind of think about what our inventory is in Leavenworth County, and if we have something that we think might fit. For instance, if it's the Leavenworth Business and Technology Park that seems like a good fit, I will immediately call you all, the city, and I will talk to you guys. And if you guys are in agreement, I will move forward with the process. And these RFIs are asking for information. Sometimes it's as simple as a flyer on the park, and sometimes it's a 150-page Excel worksheet asking questions that just a lot of times they're very in-depth like that. And so we'll have to start working with our utility partners, find out exactly, what the gas capacity, electricity, all that information is, to see if they need that information to help them make decisions. And then we put together, cover letters that kind of talk about the community and why we want that company to come here and engage in some more conversations. So I had mentioned that we go to some of the networking events in the Kansas City area. We have partners such as Kansas City Area Development Council. This is one of our biggest sources for our project leads, and they also provide networking events because it's been proven over and over that people like to do business with people they know. So it's important that we're in that space with those real estate agents, developers, site consultants, and we're constantly putting our face out there and talking about our community and developing those relationships. And if you can see that picture on the top left, we had the opportunity to have our mayor, City of Holly Pittman, go with us, and Lansing's City Council member, Jake Kowalski, and they came with us to one of the events. This was a special event that they put on that had a topic that was important to some of the elected officials, and this one happened to be on confidentiality and project management. And so it was a good opportunity for us to come together and they see what we do sometimes. And then in the top right corner is another event from KCADC. This one's called Women in Development. So this is a chance for me to go quarterly and meet with other female realtors, selectors, site selectors, and that sort of thing. SIOR Development Day, this is like a big trade show. It's done at the KC Union Station, and it is packed full of every kind of developer, whether it's a real estate agent, it's architects, engineers. You just walk down the aisle and you talk to all these different people, and you try to connect with these people and further develop those relationships.
What time of year is that?
That is in September. I usually know, here in the next few months when that is.
Okay.
We've talked about in the past maybe sometime having a booth
Yeah,
there.
that'd be awesome.
You have to get on a list, and I tried that last year, and I didn't get onto it early enough, so we'll
That would be
reach
good
out.
if, I don't know, if Penny and Scott or one of us goes to that. That'd be good
Yep,
if we can do that.
okay. And then CREW, that stands for Commercial Real Estate for Women in the Kansas City area. Another group of people that I try to make sure I'm doing events with, and sometimes they will host tours. So that's what's on the bottom right corner. We went to Lee Summit, and we get to see some of the things that other communities are doing, and also can further develop relationships. Nationally, we try to make sure we have a national presence as well. A couple of the well, here on this picture, last year, we had a cool opportunity. The Team Kansas, this is a group started at the state, and they try to put together events where they invite site consultants, and then they have some of the communities in Kansas come, and it's more of an intimate, like sometimes it's a dinner and you get to develop those relationships. But this specific one where you see the helicopter, they did what's called a familiarization tour. We talked about it before. And so the state took site consultants, they flew them to Kansas to see Kansas, and then gave them helicopter tours specifically over available sites. And Leavenworth Business and Technology Park got to be one of those sites that they visited. And then as you can see, Penny was able to get this LV painted on the Leavenworth Business and Technology Park ground so that people in the helicopter could see that. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Way to go, Penny.
Yeah. And
Way to go, Parks and Rec.
and we also put together, I worked with Penny and her team to put together video and pictures of the quality of life, of available sites, that kind of thing in this area. And we put it on one of those, what do you call those, digital frames. And so we gave that to them as a gift so that they could go home and look at those pictures of the area. So I go to other conferences as well. A lot of these conferences, the top left corner, like typical conference, you have panels of site consultants that come and talk about project trends. They talk about, what site consultants, how they work with these clients and what these clients want to see in available properties so that we can better prepare our areas for these kind of projects. On the bottom left is another Team Kansas event where we went to a game, but you can see to my left in that picture, that's a site consultant that I've actually now seen at 3 of these events. So it helps because you start seeing each other and getting to know each other. And then you get, start learning more and more about each other. So this one, the Lieutenant Governor was at that. You can see him in the background talking to another site consultant there. Okay, so what am I doing wrong? Oh, too fast. Sorry about that. There you go. Project activity 2024. Shoot, I forgot. I wrote the number down. Okay, 15 projects in 2024 that I submitted the Leavenworth Business and Technology Park for. Let's see. Oh, I wrote that. Shoot. Sorry. So some of the industries were a semiconductor. There were mostly manufacturing. There were a couple of data centers. That park is not really set up for huge hyperscale, but we do have the ability to host a small data center. And so we have kind of looked into that to see how we can market that. Recently, some new legislation is giving some incentives to the data center in Kansas, so I'm excited about that and hoping that we might see a little bit more activity on that. And then we submitted the Gary Carlson Business Park for 2 projects in 2024. This year, in 2025 so far, I'm pretty sure it's 3, and I should have double-checked that, but I just let it slide. Yes?
A small data center, size-wise, is that something, a small data center would take over the whole park? Or it would have, maybe half of the park?
Yes, I would say more like half of the park. What I know, but yeah, you're right, data centers are typically really large and need hundreds of acres. So it would be, in small, it would probably take at least half of a park.
A significant challenge we have with the data center, as well as the power distribution. And Evergy, it's kind of a chicken and egg situation right now, where the data centers want the power, but Evergy doesn't want to build the power until there's a facility there that will take it. So it's about managing that if that comes to it.
So Evergy is actually, and all power companies are actually restricted by law. They can't build speculatively. They have to have a project in before they would build more. So
I know they own the property across 20th Street.
yes.
Already.
The other thing that I would say, the Leavenworth Business and Technology Park has lots of water, so that's a good thing, especially for data centers. We do have more water than most sites that size. And then another interesting thing is we have a gas line in the park, which apparently is a good thing. We've learned that as we were trying to research into data centers, that can be used as temporary power until they can get more power built. So we've got some,
Generac.
say that again?
Generac. They'll hook right into your gas.
Right.
Lisa, of these projects here for the Business and Technology Park, excuse me, do you know how many of these were just at RFI phase? I mean, did any of them move on to anything else besides RFIs, or?
Oh, let me think about that. So most of them, it was at least one that did move forward to where we were in the final, but we did not get any site visits. That's usually the next step, unfortunately.
Okay.
But I will say, the more you are responding to RFIs, the more you're getting, it's just more attention to this area.
Do you know, like, over the last few years, you know, how many total projects or total, you know, companies of interest have reached out to you on?
I would say 3, especially one that we were in the top 2 that we did not receive.
Okay. Do we find out why on those?
No, a lot of times you just don't. One of them we do know just did not happen. The project did not happen. But a lot of times we don't know.
Yeah, and I'm just asking, like, do we ask? When I
Right.
don't
Oh,
lose
yes.
when I lose a bid, I'll ask typically, like,
Yes.
what do we need to do differently?
Right.
So,
What could we have improved or, yeah. But we do keep track of, when we get requests for things that we don't have, we keep track of how many projects we don't respond because we can't provide rail. We do keep track of, ones that we don't have the size of business of the building that they ask for, things like that, so that we can kind of, like
Okay.
I always say, if money fell from the sky, we could maybe look at something like that, like building a spec building.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
We did just recently have a project that we had sent out for like a year or two ago or whatever, and never heard anything, and then they circled back with an amended scope
Yep.
of their project.
That too.
Yeah, so that happens from time to time as well, where we think the project's dead and they just were deciding to go a different direction. So,
There's a project that is in Tonganoxie. It was Project Bright, and it took 4 years from the time it came to our desk to the time it was announced. And in that, they had a merger, which slowed things down.
Of course.
as well as a retirement by one
Yeah.
of their lead people. So they almost had to start over. So
Sure.
you just never know why these things
Right, okay.
work or don't.
I think especially when it comes to industry, this is by far the most challenging of our economic development partnerships and groups in terms of, because we are specifically fishing for the big fish, right? And so a little nibble's not gonna help us. And so we're sitting there waiting for that one fish that's gonna bite.
I don't remember, Scott, do you remember how long we've had this now? This
The
piece of
business
property?
park,
2018, June,
Okay, all
when it
right,
opened.
gotcha. So, 7 years, 3 serious potentials, okay.
It is a long time, but it's a long game. We do have some challenges. We do have challenges, and we've been informed, multiple times, that the housing on the west side is an issue. When a company comes to the site, sees that, they're concerned that even though they, the site is already pre-zoned, or zoned ahead of time, light industry, still those people in those houses may not want something like a big building. They didn't expect that to happen, and they might be vocal, and these businesses cannot afford that.
Sure.
So that's a challenge for most of them. The other challenge is the distance from the park to I-70. Unfortunately, every time a truck has to stop at a stoplight, that's time and money. But I do think that there is going to be the right company. It's just going to take time, unfortunately.
So are there things out there that other, cities do when it comes to residents and stuff like that? Because obviously you don't know if it's gonna be an issue, like chicken processing plant or something like that, until, it happens. But is there anything that cities can do proactively with the residents to kind of put up, I don't know, just,
Pave the way.
yeah, just ahead of time? I mean, are there other cities that do anything? Because we're not the only ones in that spot, obviously.
I'm going to say communication. Being honest and upfront about it is the best thing that you can do. Unfortunately, you can't force all the real estate agents to tell those people when they buy and sell and then, tell them every time, but doing your best to communicate that, hey, we're hoping for something pretty big.
Okay, so the way it is right now then, Lisa, basically we've got property that is available, but you'd say probably a good percentage of the manufacturing companies that have looked at it have been freaked out that they're gonna get pushback?
We've only had that happen twice. The others, we just don't get to hear what the issue is. They've
Gotcha.
always just
So it could have been
chosen-
more, but we just don't know.
Right.
Okay.
Hasn't there been communication or discussion about
That's not cool.
putting up one very large,
Berm?
yeah,
Yes, and we did present that to a company that did have an issue with that. And so we reached out to the city, and the city reached out to their engineers, and they drew up some plans for berm. So if there was a company that would be helpful for them, we could offer that as a cost share.
In an attempt to be proactive on that, Penny has applied for a federal grant for that twice, I believe.
State grant.
Or state grant,
State-based grant, yeah.
to just go ahead and build the berm, but we have not received that grant both times.
Well, thanks for trying.
but you're gonna go for the third time, aren't you?
Third time's a charm.
There's no funding available for that right now, but it is something we offer in our incentives. We say we will consider cost sharing on a firm for a company.
Thank you, I appreciate
And
that.
we've looked for other things, to how can we set apart from other communities? One of the things that we've started really talking about is our workforce. We've got a very unique workforce with the Fort Leavenworth and the kind of skill that's coming out of there. We've also working on, I can talk about our CTE symposium that we think is going to help improve the workforce pipeline. But there are, according to the Census Bureau, over 9,000 veterans in this community. So that's a unique thing that we have here. So
Gotcha.
we do try to highlight those kind of things.
Sure, sure.
Project sources, really quickly, you guys have seen this so many times. If you look at 2025, we've had 13 leads. I must say that we have more prospects. I need to upgrade that number. Prospects just means that we started working on something that we didn't, it wasn't something that we decided was not a project for us. We did some work. Then if you look over to the right, you can see from Commerce in 2025, we have, of those 13, 8 came from the Department of Commerce. The number in parentheses, 29, is what happened last year. So you can compare this year to the last year. KCADC, from the 13 that we've received this year, we received 4 from them. And then LCDC, 1, that means that the company came directly to us. Okay. So I said business attraction is one of the ways that we market, but we also do business retention expansion. Over 50% of a community's capital investment typically comes from those existing businesses who do expand and grow. So it's really important that we have a robust BRE program is what we call it, and that is Diana Dodd's responsibility. She's been working very hard. She meets with these existing companies at least annually. She assists them with any issues that they're having. She does provide state assistance with state programs. There are several programs that the state offers to these companies that are paying above average wages and investing back into their companies. And so she helps them with those, and that is then in turn returned by capital investment through expansion. And then she's helping them with workforce solutions. Workforce initiatives are kind of a big thing since it's one of the biggest problems that businesses have. She's making connections to resources like the Workforce Partnership Program from the state. She's connecting to universities, to tech schools, that kind of thing. She's also established the two biannually job fairs, and you see that one was when they did that at Heritage Center. And then she's also been working on the CTE Symposium. This came out of her meetings with some of these resources, like the high schools and the community college and that sort of thing, and was hearing things that seemed a little redundant. So instead she thought, well, let's bring everybody together so that we can improve the talent pipeline for our existing businesses, as well as another way to attract new ones, and then also, helping to provide those jobs for our young people instead of having to go out of our community. We do a lot of community engagement. I won't go through the list. I just put up some pictures. We try to make sure we are working with our community partners in many ways. And then finally, the LCDC does do the staff work for the Port Authority. And I am only just going over this briefly because this is not a Port Authority update. This is LCDC, but we do that work, and some of our time is invested in this. And of course, a lot of our funding comes from the Port Authority, so they're really important, and their work is important. The funding, as you can see in this diagram, the funding from the county goes to the Port Authority, and then they provide funding to us for operations for our people and rent and that sort of thing. We also request money from each of the three cities, Lansing, Leavenworth, and Tonganoxie. That formula, the way we figure that out, the formula is takes into account the property valuation and population. So that is why, and then also for the cities of Leavenworth and Tonganoxie, we add a $10,000 fee to acknowledge the extra work that we spend on marketing the parks. And then we have private investors that we have that we are a public-private organization. Just some of the things I just kind of wanted to talk about. We've, recently been putting together a lot of charts and graphs and pulling together some research and data, and some of the things that I thought were interesting to you guys. The Gary Carlson Business Center was established in 1989. That was a Port Authority effort. It's got over 10 businesses there. We still have 3 available properties left in that business park. There are over 400 jobs, and then last year they paid over $400,000 in property taxes. So that's a significant impact on our community. Some of the initiatives, you may have heard of the education campaign. The Port Authority if you back up a little bit, about 4 years ago, the county used to fund both the LCDC and the Port Authority, and then unfortunately, right at that time, the county decided to combine that funding just to the Port Authority and then reduce that by half of that amount. So it significantly reduced the funding for our organizations. And so the Port Authority has been exploring ways to, find other ways to receive that, make up for that funding. And so one of the things that they've talked about potentially is requesting a portion of a mill, because they are a quasi-governmental agency. They have that taxing ability. And so they've just been exploring that. They did hire a company to do a survey, and they found through that survey that Leavenworth County people are excited about new economic development efforts, but don't want to pay for it. So this company, Golden Shovel Agency, has recommended that they pursue an education campaign. So you will see a lot more messages out there about what LCDC and what the Port Authority do, how they differ, how they work together, about the funding, why it's important that we have this effort, and how important they are to the future of Leavenworth County. So there will be more to come on that. They also have an industrial site visioning committee, which has been, they'll be recommending a site or sites for a future business park. And then the regional transportation, just keeping an eye on all the different projects that are going on. And then Greg Cause was very significant in shepherding, getting started that regional, the Priorities for Progress Regional Transportation Program. And unless there are any questions, I think I've reached the end. That is it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you. You all have a good evening.
You too. Thank you, Lisa.
All right, Christy Lee, semi-annual report from the Leavenworth Convention and Visitors Bureau. Hello.
Hello, Mayor. How are you, Commissioners?
Good. How are you doing?
Here. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. Table of contents, I'll kind of go over National Tourism Review and then a little bit on the state of Kansas, and then I'll head into the Leavenworth information. So just nationally, of course, I think you've all probably are aware, it's the Real ID Act is coming up on May 7th. So if you don't have your driver's license with the gold star on it, you may want to kind of start working on that because it gets you into a lot of places. So also retail stores, I just kind of want to mention this. Foresight Research did some research in that, and they're predicting a lot of retail stores closing. I know there was some concern like sales taxes down and all that, and I think it's really a combination anymore. That's just the changes in the consumer behavior. Most people are shopping online, convenience-wise, and that they're losing patience with some of the stores not carrying their sizes and that, and it's just easier to order online. And I think going forward, we're going to see a lot of that. I'm thinking it probably in the future will hurt our downtowns and that, so it's kind of yet to be seen, but I think it's something that we need to be aware of and see what we can do to help out in that respect, so to speak.
That's a good piece of information. I mean, that's really, yeah.
Yeah, I really do think that that's going to be a big thing for us. And then, of course, we always struggle with the retail stores not being open later during the week, and the only time people are able to shop is on weekends, and they want to go someplace that they know is going to be open and have, so I mean, there's a lot of struggles there with small downtown areas anymore.
So, I mean, just to real quick, Christy, so consumer behavior, it's changing, like in
Yes.
what way? I'm just more online, right? Is that?
Yes, more online, definitely.
Pardon?
I mean, and ease, it's the cost. I mean, a lot of times you can order something online cheaper than you can get when you shop. So I think people are just changing their whole shopping aspects. So
I guess we'll see what happens after the China tariffs if people keep buying
Yes.
stuff online, so.
So, something to keep our eye on for sure. World Cup information, we're still working on that. I know Scott has the Economic Development Committee together in that, and I think a few of us from that committee will roll over into a committee on the World Cup. So just the game days, I kind of stated them. It's still kind of keeping up with what Kansas City is doing in that. I belong on several different sites and try and get updated via emails and stuff like that of things that are coming up. So,
From the city's perspective, I think we've kind of identified that we would love to support any kind of an organized effort to have events here for the World Cup. But that given we're still planning on doing Camp Leavenworth and having other events in the city, that we will probably not be the driver behind that, but I'm happy to provide assistance as we can.
Kansas Tourism, they rolled out a brand new Kansas magazine. The Kansas magazine itself has been around for quite some time. You'll note it's always been highly accolades for the photography and everything involved in it. Well, they've rolled out a new Kansas Kids magazine and that, and it seems to have gotten really good reviews as well. So stay tuned for that. I think they'll continue it for a while, but they do have the two magazines now. New mobile visitor center. In fact, this weekend it was at Pear Day, so that was kind of cool. It's one of those, it's their mobile visitor center, and when they rolled it out, it was built to basically go to large events. out of state, in state, and that, just to hand out tourism information on the state of Kansas and that. So we were really happy that they were at Pear Day this weekend. We did ask and see if we could get them for Camp Leavenworth, but however, that's state fair season, and they told us that they are signed up to go to at least 4 different state fairs in September. So I doubt we'll get them for camp, but we tried. Okay, more on Kansas tourism. I won't go through all of these and that, but just a couple of heads up. The Sunflower Summer Program did make it through the legislature, although not quite as much as it was funded in prior years. So they did approve around $3 million this year. So the State Office of Tourism has just kind of narrowed the parameters down for the program. It's probably only going to be about a month long. Leavenworth had 2 museums participating in the program last year, so we're going to, as soon as this rolls out, and in fact, I think today is the day that we can start asking our museums if they would like to participate in it this year. So hopefully we'll get 1 or 2 more and see where that goes this year. But it's a really good program. Again, if you don't know about it, suggest going online and maybe read up on it a little bit, but it's a good program. Awarded the tourism grants for 49 communities last year, and Leavenworth was one of those. If you remember, the Leavenworth County Historical Society received one for over $16,000 for the Buffalo Statue Program, so that was really cool. That will continue. I think the actual budget for the State Office of Tourism was only down by $28,000 going into 2025, so they were pretty happy about that, because there for a while they were going to have to lose a lot more of their funding, but hopefully right now it's pretty good. And then also just their social media and websites are doing really good. They surpassed all previous years. With over 5 million page views in that, and their social media is really increasing in that. So things are happening with the State Office of Tourism. They're doing really well. So now we're going to go into Leavenworth stats year end. Unique visitors to Leavenworth and that were around 207,000 people in 2024. And total trips average over 500,000, and average length of stay was about 2.5 days. Our top age group is 45 to 64. Household, there's about 3 to 5 people per household. Education level, high school still is the highest there, and then white ethnicity at 86.4%. So some of our top designated market areas that are visiting us, the Kansas City area, of course, Topeka, Wichita, Springfield, Missouri, St. Louis. So when we do our marketing, we do take this into consideration when we place outside advertising. More Leavenworth stats. The visitor days by length of stay, 1 day is about 29.7, almost 30% there, all the way to 6 days at 31.6. Visitors by day shows still Monday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday are kind of our top days. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday. So top days by visitors. Cluster visitation, the program that we have allows us to have those 6 different clusters. Leavenworth, of course, is the largest share of the trips. Fort Leavenworth and downtown area, lodging, attractions, and meetings. And then over on our points of visitation, you'll see that broken down even more. It shows Leavenworth and, of course, Fort Leavenworth, and then it kind of breaks down by University of St. Mary, our Fairfield, our hotels, and then the National Cemetery. Basically, the VA center out there is what I'm going to see if I can get another address added to that, so it narrows it down a little bit more for us. But again, Holiday Inn, Trails West Golf Course, and etc. So overnight visitation share, looks like the 2, 3, 4, 5 days were down a little bit, but the 6 days were up. Most likely, I would have to say that's probably Fort visitation.
Or the prison.
Or the
The
prison.
new prison.
Correct. Yep. Percent of visitors, our top states, in-state travel, Kansas 22%, Missouri is at 18%, Texas 9%, Illinois, and then Nebraska, Oklahoma, and Florida are our top visitation states. versus visitor share. Local went up and visitors went down, which doesn't correlate to our transient guest tax at all, but I redone it because this is the only one where it comes up where it's your locals are 0 to 5 miles and visitors are 5 to the 39, 37. So I redone it and did a 0 to 49 miles for locals and then visitors 49, or visitors 50 and up. And then it kind of switched. Locals were down 33% and visitors were up 33%. So I guess to keep everything the same, I would use the 50 mile plus. And it just kind of makes more sense for us. Our occupancy has been increasing, obviously, the last 5 years there. We are at 68.3% for 2024, which is pretty good. I mean, that's close to 70% occupancy, so we're doing really well. Hotels are doing great.
I checked on it recently with the stop and travel.
It's gonna go down, it will. How that works is Star report, Smith Travel Research Report. I don't get it every month just because it's very cost prohibitive, so I just pull it twice a year. So I won't pull it again probably until fall when I do our next report,
So we
but
won't even know.
I won't know. Other than calling the hotels, and the hotels are reporting that it is down by quite a bit.
Do you do that often?
I'm sorry?
Do you call the hotels often? Like-
Yeah, I meet with them on a regular basis and we have lunch and coffee and
Yeah.
visit and
I met with
share
one the other
ideas
day,
and brainstorm.
and she said they were down.
Who'd you meet with? I'm sorry.
A hotel manager, and she was concerned because
Okay.
they were down.
Yeah, it will affect that for sure, for travel, it will. So we'll see. I think this year, you can't, it's hard to even predict where it's gonna land. So 2024 was great.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it was really good.
25
It was really
might
good.
not be so much. But as you can see, our numbers are really pretty good in that, and that's hence why I do think that some hotels will probably start looking at us. However, we'll see how the 2025 and the rest of the country does for this year.
What's the national average, Christy, for the occupancy rate?
I don't have the national average. We're above the state average for Kansas.
What's that?
Kansas is usually around 52, 53, and we're at 68, so we're
Cool.
above the Kansas state average.
Okay.
So we did another graph as far as our transient guest tax, so you can kind of see the 9-year average over there. We've been increasing about almost 18% every year. Few anomalies thrown in there, 2017 and of course 2020 COVID and a little bit in 2022 as we rebounded. And then I'm sure 2025 will kind of throw another wrench in the mix, but it still looks pretty good.
And the average daily rate is just solely based off of average total daily hotel room stays? I mean,
Yes.
cost room, okay.
Average daily rate, yes. Leavenworth, our visitor's guidebook is out, so if you haven't seen a copy of that or would like a copy or know of somebody that wants some delivered, we will certainly do that for them. 2024, we distributed almost 11,000 visitor guidebooks locally and around the area. Our events newsletter that we're sending out, we have over 1,200 subscribers and an open rate of 26.3%. Our group tours and meetings in that, we hosted 5 group tours last year and 4 meetings for a total of 494 people in attendance and a direct spend of $127,839. And as far as group tours and me meeting with them at a conference in 2022, about 28.4% of our tours were ones that I had met with at a conference. 2023, it was 30%, 2024, 33, 2025, so far is 44%. Website stats, page views, 343,000, unique, 176, and again, our top pages viewed are the calendared events, homepage, USDB, and the Bureau of Prisons. That's usually every day you can count on 1 or 2 phone calls of people trying to reach their loved ones. So social media, still, our Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, we have about a little over 9,000 followers between those social media platforms, and then an increase of over 3.77% of followers over last year's numbers. And then our print ads, digital ads, I've kind of 30 print ads last year in 2024, distribution of 3.7 million. We continue to do our digital banners with the State Office of Tourism and that, and hopefully with their website going gangbusters, we'll see some return on that as well. They do tend to be one of our biggest referral, when you go into the stats on the website and that's one of our biggest referrals that we get the most referrals from. 3 banner ads, we did billboards and 1 TV ad in 2024. Some other local updates, we have completed the Hometown Proud signs and that, and in fact the mayor went over that today in their presentation and that. So we do have a QR code on there, and it's trackable, so we can go on, click on that, our landing site on that, and just check and see how many people are checking in, so that's kind of cool. We should be able to give you updates on that soon. I should have wrote that number down there, but I didn't. I want to say, like last time I checked it, there was at least 9 people that had checked in on the QR code as they were looking at the signs. We have a new passport. It's called Explore Leavenworth Passport. We launched it a couple months ago in that, so we've had about 25 people check in. We have over 14 locations on it, and if you check into at least 3 of them, you can win little prizes, stickers and that, and as you check into more locations, you can win bigger prizes. Stakeholders e-newsletter, we have 148 subscribers locally downtown, so it's mostly our downtown merchants and that are subscribed to that, and we have an open rate of 58%. Omi Hachima in Japan, they are visiting us this year. They are sending their high school students. They'll probably be here in July, and then also they're sending their delegates. This will be like their city mayor and president of the school probably, and some of their other delegates from not the students, I guess is what I'm trying to say in that. And they will be here October 25th and 26th. So we're working on an itinerary right now, and our first meeting for the Sister City group is going to be in May, I believe. I scheduled it for May 20th. So kind of excited about that. And then also our Wagga Wagga visit. Their program has taken they're taking off a few years, hopefully not years, but their program right now is waiting until they can get enough volunteers to restart it. So their Wagga Wagga delegates, like they've been visiting us almost every 2 years. Hopefully it'll come back next year and they'll get the program back running, but right now it's kind of on hold until they can come up with some more volunteers for their program. But hopefully we will be sending a contingent from Leavenworth to Wagga Wagga this year, and currently it's scheduled for sometime in October. Tourism grants that we did on February 1st, we did the Leavenworth County Historical Society and then the Heritage Events Center. So we did have some funding that rolled over into the August because we only did the 2. We had 3 turned in, and I can't, anyway, 3 turned in, only 2 qualified, so those 2. So the rest of the funding and off the $15,000 will roll over into the August round. Calendar of events, again, just check our website, because we do a really, Keitha does a really good job of getting all the events listed on there, so please check it out if you want something to do on a weekend or during the week. Trade shows and conferences that are on the 2025 calendar. We just had Pear Day this past Saturday, so it was pretty good. We had a really busy time between 11 and noon, and then it slowed down a little bit, but it went until about 2 o'clock. So hopefully, I think we handed out probably about 50 visitor guidebooks and then a ton of toys and candy for the kids. So it was fun. Group tour meetings that we've hosted so far or will host in this year. The one down there, sorry, I forgot to space over, but it says Fall Grace on the Go. That actually is Dick Wright's group. He used to live here. He used to be one of our tour guides in that. When he retired, he moved to St. Louis, and his church, he wants to bring his church back here for a tour in the fall. So we are looking forward to when he decides to do that. Just some other, April 30th through May 4th, we're hosting the CB conference. So we've been working on that pretty a lot. At least 40 or so veterans that will be here for the week, for about 4 days. So keep them busy with those, and that's what I have. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to see if I can answer or at least get back to you on it.
What do you think the number one driver, if anything, was for having a lot more visitors last year and everything as opposed to previous years?
The number, say that again.
The number one, like, contributor to getting more people here in Leavenworth last year? I mean, it was a pretty big uptick, you know, percentage-wise.
It was the fort. I believe most of our visitation is coming in for the fort. And
I mean, anything specifically tied to that, though? Like, what was going on? I can't think of anything major going on there last year.
No, I don't think, there was not, because I've asked George Marchek that too with the Public Affairs Office and that, and he couldn't speculate as to any one reason that they were coming in, other than the class sizes may have increased some that they were giving, so more people were taking advantage of some of that stuff, so.
Interesting. That's good to know.
All right, anything else? No. All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Christy.
Thank you very much.
All right, Scott, is you and Penny?
Yeah, Penny's gonna come up here and lead a presentation. As she's getting settled, kind of want to just frame this conversation and kind of give you an idea where we're coming from with it. First of all, yes, this is a direct result of Commissioner Martin and a couple of others requesting that we have this conversation with you all about our economic development partners and kind of some of the things we've seen and interacted with. I will say, you know, Penny and I at the staff level, we understand that, you know, we talk a lot about our economic development partners and getting them involved, but we know that ultimately I guess the final, sorry, my brain is fried from today.
It's okay.
The final responsibility for economic development falls on the city, and namely you all. You know, people don't call our other agencies and ask them why we don't have a Chick-fil-A downtown or whatever, right? They call you guys for that. So we recognize that, and we want to do our part to be the leaders in that. As such, we started that economic development roundtable to kind of help herd the cats, so to speak, right? And to make sure that we're all moving in the same direction, that we all have one vision in mind to keep growing Leavenworth. In that time, I think, so what I will say is Penny's going to give a presentation on this. She and I share all of these observations. We put this together, and so when she speaks and talks about some of the concerns she has, just know that I have those same concerns.
Cool, it's good to know.
We are here to answer those questions that you guys have and to really have this honest conversation. And we will certainly take what we can from this conversation and make sure we lead our partners in the right direction in the way you guys want us to moving forward.
Cool.
All right?
Thank you.
All right, so I will kick it off with a simple question. How do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
With the help of as many friends as you can find.
That cake looks good.
So, the purpose of this presentation, Mayor and Commission, is to bring clarity and transparency to economic development in the city and our partners. So let's first define economic development. People often point to a lot of things: roads, schools, healthcare, childcare, housing, public safety, and define economic development around one specific item. But for the purposes of overall growth, economic development means two things: jobs and investment. Why do we need new jobs and growing business investment? Because that's how we make our community great. That's how we get public and private benefits. That's new parks, better roads, more police officers, maybe a super Target and a Chick-fil-A. That's arts and culture and fun activity. And that grows the pool of everyone who's paying taxes. The bad news for us is the city can't possibly buy ourselves into economic success. We need to take limited funding and staffing and apply it strategically to encourage ideal growth. That's what current programs and incentives are designed to do. And in your packet, there's a list of city programs and activities from the Economic Development Department. So Scott and I certainly are the team. Technically, 40% of my time is devoted to economic development. So I would characterize the current status of our Economic Development Department as positive and busy. The city runs 5 programs. I receive regular contacts from startup businesses, regular contacts from businesses looking for buildings, medium to large projects, and business and technology park marketing. So here's the way I would frame this when I say the city provides full spectrum economic development. That means large development projects, as Lisa Pack was talking about for LCDC. This is holding land for future development, development of utilities and infrastructure, financing, state and local incentives. We do that pursuing large business projects. On the other hand, we also will speak to someone who wants to set up a home-based business. They want to make a craft and sell it online. They want to make a craft and sell it at the farmer's market. They want to start a food truck. This is their first endeavor into having a downtown storefront. That's the full spectrum of people who reach out and call me at the city and who walk into my office asking for help on a number of items. So those conversations go everywhere. City licensing and permits. That could be they need assistance getting connected to help work on a business plan, or that could be LCDC bringing a potentially large project here. So that's really the work that the city focuses on. I have some good news there, is that the city population has grown and is growing. Per capita income is higher than the regional average. Our federal partners help contribute to our general financial stability. The numbers for Leavenworth are promising and show opportunity for growing business here. However, it's still going to take the combined efforts of all of us to encourage the growth that the city wants and needs. The packet has a list of partners and data highlights that I will try to cover briefly. So, Leavenworth County. The county purview obviously is quite large, and they oversee some of those important inputs into economic development. That's roads, bridges, health programs. So as an example, Bill Knoll, the Public Works Director, is the lead working on grants to implement the countywide transportation plan. That's the list of projects that we're all committed to working on in priority order and trying to get state, federal, MARC funding to support those projects. Terry Lois Mashburn, the Register of Deeds, she's helping businesses protect their assets from property fraud and doing some work there. Chuck Magaha, the County Emergency Manager, who we just heard from, he actually has a presentation put together that we share with local businesses, preparing for natural disasters and business resiliency. So certainly some important work being done by the county. That said, the approach to countywide economic development has shifted in recent years. As was alluded to earlier, there's been relatively dramatic reductions of funding to the countywide economic development groups, which is the Port Authority and LCDC. They hired their own economic development director at one point with some of that funding. If there were any jobs or investment created in the county during that time, I am unaware of that. And I understand when it comes to government's limited funding and some of those challenges. And perhaps from the county, this is temporary. I'm unsure. But I do know that the one way to get both of our governments on a healthier financial ground is to grow our way to a thriving community. And limited personnel and funding may limit that growth. So I'll talk about LCDC. LCDC is the county's only economic development corporation, or EDC, and that term means something specific. They're the primary entity for our region's development projects. When we're talking these large projects, those are all coming to LCDC. The Leavenworth County government and the cities of Leavenworth, Lansing, and Tonganoxie all participate and support LCDC. Baser participated up until last year. So when we talk about where project leads are going from the Kansas City Area Development Council or the Kansas Department of Commerce, they're going to LCDC. LCDC and the Port Authority also do studies. So how do we know that 67% of people are commuting out of Leavenworth County every day? We know that because LCDC and the Port Authority did a study, a labor shed study that tells us that. And that's great information we can use when we're marketing our park to say, we have talent here, and then we can use that to attract businesses. I'll step a little bit into the LCDC, Port Authority, the initials. They're confusing for people trying to understand what the city does for economic development. The best I can say is talking about the Port Authority, they have legal ability to purchase and hold land for future development. So we do this for parks. Right? You want to buy the park property in a city before the development happens around it, and that way you can control what becomes a park in the future. In some ways, the Port Authority has that same ability. They can purchase the land that we think will be desirable, will make sense in the future, specifically for those large industrial projects, and hold on to it 5, 10, 15, 20 years as development happens, and that can be reserved for that industrial business space. The Port Authority, as LCDC and Lisa Hack mentioned, owns the Gary Carlson Business Park here in Leavenworth. The Port Authority and LCDC are the team that brought us those businesses. That includes Cereal Ingredients, and they're the team that most recently brought us the maps. That was a $2 million building investment into the Gary Carlson Park. They're also the team that are working with us on our Business and Technology Park. So let's talk about the Business and Technology Park. The city and the county both contributed funds for the park, and LCDC supports with the marketing and leads for the park. It is still vacant, and I know that's frustrating to you, that's frustrating to me. I can point to several things as an explanation. We can say COVID and other things. I'm a fan of let's control what we can control.
Yep.
So that means researching what might be optimal and what industrial companies are looking for right now. We talk about things like energy and water. I'm glad you said that because that's also things that we sell as things that we have that might be a competitive advantage for the business park. In the last few months, Scott and I and Lisa Hack went to the KC Smartport. They're under that KC ADC umbrella at their offices at Union Station. And we talked about, are there things we can do to better position our marketing so we are selling the park and we're using our strengths. So we're having those conversations. Are we competitive for a data center? What could that look like? We're in the biohealth corridor. We met with the experts in biohealth and animal science for the region and said, what are your companies looking for when they're considering an international company that could locate in this area? So we're having those conversations to really try to dig in and see where we can be competitive. And LCDC is the agency that writes our business park proposals. These are extensive reports sometimes. They list information that companies are looking for their development project. They can be 10 to 20 pages of data. This could be how many kilowatts of electricity are available on site. Whatever information they request, LCDC puts that together. It takes time, it takes outreach, stormwater questions, a lot of transit, travel, workforce. When we work with Workforce Partnership to answer some of those, we work with KCC on some of those. We work with St. Mary. We really try to pull in all the information we can get to have those most competitive proposals, and LCDC does that work.
Do you see them before they get sent? Do you sign off on them? Do you read them?
So I'm happy to share the process. So you saw the list of leads that they come in. LCDC is the initial point of contact. They look those over. They send it to Scott and I. We look it over. We're looking for a couple key items. Number one, what's the project? Do we think it's going to be a good fit for our park and our community specifically? And you would think, well, what projects wouldn't we want in the park? I'm sure as we're thinking, we're also aware it's next to a residential housing area. So anything that, in theory might cause, in relation to industrial development, might cause maybe some, call it noise pollution, right? That may not be the best fit for that site, let's say. We look for something that might have, and these are all dictated by Clean Air Act, but are there some companies that might be more, might have more emissions than others? Is that the right fit for the park? So we kind of review that. We look at the number of jobs, we look at the average wage as we know it, and these are all initial conversations. We look at the level of investment. We look to see if it's even feasible in that space. If they say they want 81 acres, we say sold, we have 81 acres. If they say they want 90 acres, we start to look around and, is there adjacent property that could work for? So there are some where we have just turned them down because they're not the right fit for the park.
So rough guess, how many have you turned down in the last 3 years?
A handful off the top of my head.
Less than 10.
Less than 10, and here's why, right? We're submitting to these RFIs, and we never quite know our chances. So it's in our best interest generally to submit a good proposal and see if they come back. So the ones that we turn down are the ones we say it doesn't fit, it's not the right item for us, or sometimes they're requesting something we just don't have. Like we see they want a rail line, they want to be directly on I-70. At least we kind of know what's coming through, what they're asking for, but we're just not their fit for those.
And I would also note a potential pitfall in the future. Some companies are better than others about identifying what it is exactly their facility is proposed to be doing. And some are very broad. And so, so obviously it is easier for us to be more selective on, like, if they tell us exactly what they're gonna build, like we had one that wanted to do solar panels, manufacture solar panels. Okay, we know what that is, right? And then we had another one that was like a biological sciences manufacturer. Well, that could mean dozens of things, right? So part of that is, I think we say, okay, well, we meet that requirement, we'll go ahead and submit. But there is that potential someday where they come back and they're like, well, actually, we make dog food or something. And it's like, well, okay, well, we have to say no to that. But
Or we say yes to that if the wage is good and I'm just gonna bring in engineers, and so it's all part of that assessment.
Sure.
We've got a lot of comments coming, but keep on going.
Okay, that's the point of doing this, right? I think it's important to have these conversations and in some ways have them publicly. So if we're talking those proposals that come through, I won't say anything more about this, but I will say one of those proposals that came through, I had to call Lisa Hack and I said, does it say $1 billion in investment? And she said, yes, that's a B, that's a 1B. So just to give you an example, that could be a small $2 million project, and that could be a $1 billion project. That's the gamut of projects that we're getting for the park. So positive signs. I'd like to take almost any one of those that we think fit, and that's the effort that we're putting forth to do that. And it's also important for me to say, this is just the initial work that's being done. The reason you all maybe don't see all of this is because, like Scott said, it's very brief information initially, and we're doing just that first pass vetting of it. If there were to be future conversations, that's a city commission discussion to get in, and if we're talking, is this really the right fit? That's a city commission decision. Are there incentives we're going to provide them or tax benefits? That's a city commission decision. Are we going to cost share on the berm to help the neighbor? This all, at the end of the day, will be a city project with as much public transparency and the obviously commission involvement in guiding the way, the whole step. So if that's kind of helpful, I know sometimes there's questions about the secrecy and confidentiality. It's very limited, usually at the start, and as these things happen, it becomes more public as they go along. So sure. Just want to kind of provide clarity to that. And also walk into the key issue, right? As we're talking to LCDC and the Port Authority. Do I have a slide on that? I do. So the key issue for them is the shortage of funding. So they have enough funds collectively saved to use for the next few years, but to be clear, they do not have enough funding to continue to function in this manner. So due to the shortage, they're spending an increased amount of time on community education to mobilize public support for their funding. They're also likely to consider cost-cutting measures, and that may reduce their current level of service. Leavenworth currently provides $69,000 every year to LCDC. We really couldn't hire an economic development professional at the level that we would need, let alone a team for that. And the combined group, the combined funding of the county and their investors means we're not competing with our neighboring cities or the county. Although it may be confusing if the city and Leavenworth County and Tonganoxie and Lansing all showed up trying to draft really the same companies. In some ways, having one entity, in theory, alleviates some of that confusion. However, that's a governing body decision, ultimately based on how you think the city can be most successful in the area of economic development. Should I go to the next one, or were there specific questions on the Port Authority? Okay.
I'll get to them.
Great.
I'll defer to my team.
Okay. So we're going to switch from the county's Economic Development Corporation to a group that is not a direct tie to growing jobs and business investment, but they are vitally important to the city's success. The Chamber is the key community connector. The Association of Chamber Executives defines a Chamber of Commerce as an organization of businesses seeking to further their collective interests while advancing their communities. Chamber professionals work in the areas of communications, finance, marketing, customer service, and event planning. And those are all areas that local existing businesses need. So 2/3 of chambers in the United States are just like ours. They do chamber activities and are not a direct part of economic development. But that doesn't mean they're less important or relevant. They should be the cheerleaders and have so much positive messaging that Leavenworth is known regionally by other businesses and perhaps attract them to the city. They can also be a resource provider to help businesses succeed. They could put on things like business symposiums and provide resources to existing businesses. Our chamber has provided those services for years, is well established with its role and its programs. The Women's Division, the Military Affairs Committee, Government Affairs Committee, Operation International, the ambassadors, and the leadership class. The strength of our chamber is volunteerism from our business community and participants who give their time for these efforts. I think everyone here has attended a chamber event, a ribbon cutting, a coffee. That connectedness is how we keep and grow local businesses and make our community great. That's why the city of Leavenworth is a member and a partner and has multiple seats on the board of directors. And because they are legally structured for politically lobbying, they can gather business concerns from companies and work with local and state governments to collaboratively address issues. They can also rally for specific political candidates that best meet with their collective goals. That said, there have been some shifts in chamber activity in recent years that may limit an ideal partnership with the city and slow community goal achievement. Simply put, there's been sort of a lack of fundamental management. If I'm just going to focus in on the finances. In the last 2 years, the chamber has significantly overspent their budget. Memberships and fundraising haven't kept up with their spending.
I'm sorry, Penny, the last 2 years you said?
The last 2 years. They've been using their reserve funds, so there's savings for the last 2 years. The chamber is in the most precarious financial status of any organization listed, and if this continues, they'll be unable to operate as an organization after next year. At that same time of struggle, there's been a shift away from public transparency. There was a staff decision mid-2023 that full information would not be shared with ex officio board members, including current financials and budget information. Ex officio board members include the cities of Leavenworth and Lansing, includes LCDC and Main Street, includes the Leavenworth and Lansing school districts, and the Fort Leavenworth garrison. And that has severely limited the ability of those who run those organizations and understand nonprofit finances to assist with identifying solutions. There's other decisions being made that don't seem to get their policy decision from the full board, which is ex officios and actual business owners. Conversations about changes to the bylaws, the chamber state and federal lobbying activities, and even participation in Camp Leavenworth. It seems from a city perspective, it might be time to kind of get back to basics and have a renewed local focus and stabilize kind of your basic business management. And then also, if there's a underlying issue that I think a lot would agree on, including the chamber, there's just been a lack of strategic planning. There's been a lot of activity, but that doesn't mean that priorities are being accomplished. One example is there seems to be maybe some confusing efforts to have the chamber expand countywide and take on economic development. If the chamber were to want to take on economic development and go countywide, that would be a public discussion really for the communities to see whether something like that would make sense. On the positive side, they have a new chair and a new treasurer with good experience. I have a meeting with them shortly this week, and I'm looking forward to better engaging with the chamber to have these conversations. As a city, frankly, we need our chamber to succeed and thrive for us to succeed and thrive. And then Main Street. Main Street is the downtown organization. Leavenworth has a 28-block downtown, as you know, if you've ever tried to walk it. And Main Street is charged with revitalizing the downtown. We can't be a great first city in Kansas without our historic downtown. I'm one of their loudest advocates because I'm a downtown advocate. There are great shops and restaurants, banks and insurance agents, pocket parks and event spaces in the downtown. Are there opportunities to make the downtown better? Yes. Main Street is a key partner for actionable strategies to do that. From my perspective, some of the items from the city that we've expected from the downtown seems to have lost priority with staff turnover in recent years. That's been a little frustrating from an economic development department perspective, missing things like educational classes for business owners, an updated list of available properties for lease or sale, leadership on maintaining existing buildings, and pursuing grants to bring in downtown investment and activity. For a couple years, I've struggled to get data to provide the governing body with where their funds are actually going. So we know in 2024, the governing body, so Leavenworth, increased their funding from $39,000 the year before to $56,000, with the goal of having those additional funds make a greater impact. And frankly, it doesn't seem like we saw that materialize. No. I will point to the bright spots. So there's new board leadership, and they've been engaging frequently with the city. They often attend our city commission meetings and are more actively working directly with staff. They have staff stability, so their current staff has been in place now, and that's a positive. They also just completed a new strategic plan that included a lot of community feedback, and they're revitalizing their committees. So it seems like it maybe has taken a while, but Main Street has strategies that really align with the city needs. I reached out to Haley, the executive director, for some data, and she said that they recently hosted the Small Business Development Center to come here to Leavenworth and do a class on marketing that drew 15 people to learn about how to better market their businesses. They're implementing a software tracker to capture downtown building information. That'll help with available spaces for purchase and lease. If you see my activity I included in your policy report, a lot of those are what's a space in the downtown that I can locate my business, and Main Street making those activities a priority will be helpful. They're also increasing their fundraising efforts. They're trying to solve their own financial problems and have the city be one piece of their finances along with memberships, fundraising, sponsorships. They've applied for grants. They just applied for a $50,000 grant to do a downtown master plan. And they've also really started to take back a leadership role in the downtown. They told me two things that they want to take action on and work with the city. Signage, which is our city sign permits, and utilizing and keeping downtown buildings. I think if you go and you see the Bruce Springsteen building and what's happening with that, that's a tangible example of what we don't want to happen. And I think in some ways that has encouraged businesses, and Main Street is leading that effort to work with us and say, what can we do? We know that there are certain items that are cost prohibitive, but required by International Building Code and International Fire Code. And by that I mean fire suppression systems. So these are conversations, how can we help? We talk about using limited resources and limited funding. How can we approach that working with Main Street? That maybe we revise the city's grant program and we look at specifically adding in criteria to encourage businesses to work with an architect on what that could look like. So those conversations will probably continue this year with Main Street, but it's just a positive sign to see them really tackling some of those hard issues. Excuse me. And then further discussion about Main Street and funding will obviously occur during the budget process, but perhaps a start to move forward would be defining the services that we're looking for from Main Street, either through an MOU or through specific reporting. So for their accreditation, Main Street already has to do quarterly reporting on items like new businesses, business closures, grant funding brought to the downtown, and other items. It might be a simple way to help track the investment of those city dollars is to request they provide that information in more specificity to us. And last but not least, our economic development partner is Grow Leavenworth County. This group is small but mighty. The city provides $1,600 annually in funding to this all-volunteer organization. The city of Lansing, the city of Leavenworth, LCDC, and Main Street participate and support this organization. This provides gap financing for new businesses, classes, and resources, does the Youth Entrepreneurship Challenge, and currently carries a $2 million loan portfolio. I'll give you just a brief example of what this organization does and why I call it small but mighty. There's a daycare up here on 4th Street called My Little Loves Daycare. That was something that because we have Grow Leavenworth County, we were able to help them get best set up. They had private financing from a bank. They needed additional funds for some of their equipment. So we were able to connect them with a low interest gap financing loan through Network Kansas. We were also able to connect them with a state grant from Network Kansas. They needed additional gap financing for some unexpected items. We were able to connect them with additional financing through another state loan program. They also received the city's economic development grant, and that they're set up and they're running, and they're an active childcare agency. So that's a small business that was created. It had been a home-based business that grew to a physical building. And all of those parents and grandparents, I'm sure, appreciate being able to be in the workforce because they have childcare. So that's just one example. That was a $50,000 project in this $2 million loan portfolio that has supported a lot of local businesses. So I know it's a lot of information on our various partners and our activity. Scott and I are here as your staff to answer any questions that you might have on how the city and our partners work together to help the city grow.
Go, go, go.
Cool. Well, I'm itching to get a few things out. Thank you. So, first of all, thank you for putting that together. I appreciate,
That's well done.
Yeah.
That was a good briefing.
appreciate the honest feedback. I'll never get upset because you guys are honest. So here's my thought. I mean, we've done what we've done for a number of years, and I'm a big believer that if money's being spent on something, people should eventually feel it, right? You should feel it somehow, some way. I'm not feeling it from LCDC. My request to the rest of the team would be that we look at withdrawing from LCDC for 2026. And we look at if we're going to potentially maybe bring things in-house. Baser's already out. We can use the funds if we cut back like we talked about in the last budget, planning session on Main Street. There's 69,000, 20,000, that's 89,000. We talked about maybe looking at city code enforcement officer, possibly not bringing a third person on. There's another 55, 60,000 FTE right there. We've carved out what we would need in an economic development director. Internally, my other thought is, okay, this person is also potentially a grant writer. We've talked about the potential necessity for something like that to have somebody devoted full-time to being able to do that. I don't think that's a full-time job, but I think if we could bring things in-house, if we're going to spend the money, then let's spend the money and get the most bang out of our buck. Because right now, with LCDC, honestly, I guess we're not fighting for, 3 other cities right now, not fighting, but we do that, but also I think we look at some funds from the, transit guest tax pool. I don't think we probably need to spend all the money we do in certain things that Christy uses it for. I think she's doing a great job, but I bet there's some carve-outs we could have right there that definitely could go towards what those, by law, what those funds are supposed to go towards. But also, I think we need to look at a business licensing program. The reason I was turned off at that before was because we were looking at it from a standpoint of, we need to charge all of our businesses to participate in a program to make our lives easier at the city, and I'm just not for that. But we've got money that we could do that. So if we're gonna do it, let's do it right. Let's start tracking progress and really get good visibility, because we don't have good visibility right now. Penny, I appreciate the 40% of your time that you spend doing this. One thing I wanted to ask was, how often are you reaching out, asking about updates from LCDC as opposed to them reaching out to you? I don't know what that looks like.
I mean, I have regular contact with them, but if there's sort of regular reports that we're looking for, I can certainly, that's a quick phone call. They're generally good on providing us whatever information that we ask.
Okay. I just think, I say, first of all, I think economic development is very important. And Christy brought up some things, maybe some headwinds we're going to be facing more and more and more. But I think if we're going to spend the money, it needs to be focused, and it needs to be focused on us as a city. Definitely partner with other cities wherever we can, or the county. But other folks are pulling back, but I think it's time that we cut the cord and we say, all right, we look at doing this in-house, but we do it the right way. And I think we have to have a business license program with it. I think we need to incorporate that person, the economic development director, into a grant writer also. If we can get potentially millions of dollars in grant money for the investment we can make, I think we have the money. I think we can do the carve out, and I think we can probably control more of the results. Would you say you can only control what you can put your hands on, right? So I think we need to seriously look at that, and I think there's a path there that I'd love to explore and see what it looks like. And again, it's not a slam on LCDC or anything else. It's just, you know what? I think it's time to do things differently. And you guys have heard me talk about this. We do so many things as a city because we've always done it, right? That's why we have 4 trillion policies, in place on everything. But I think it's time we do it, and if we want to do things differently, we need to act differently. So that's my thought, but I'll be quiet.
I like what you said. Let me ask some questions. We used to have an economic development in-house, and that's how we got the hotels back in the day. Do you know why? Do you know what the history is? I don't. Why we don't have that anymore? And
Well, so I'm sorry, I need to push back a little bit. We
Okay.
do have economic development in-house.
No, I mean, we do. I'm sorry, but you do other things too, right?
That's correct.
Right. So someone that's completely dedicated to economic development. Maybe
So,
phrase that.
and I think that the answer to that is basically we needed somebody who could do all of that.
Yeah.
And so they condensed it into a assistant city manager position. I think that's kind of where that came from.
Yep, and you'll see my salary is a cobbling together of economic development, of transient guest tax, and of general fund. So I'm the department head for the CVB, as well as overseeing economic development, as well as anything else that is need to be done in the city manager's office.
And that, in my opinion, that wouldn't have to go away or anything, because that's just, adding to the team. We have a team here in-house, but, then, I mean, because, activity, you mentioned this a couple times, Penny, on the one hand, I saw your note here, it says, hey, growth signs, consistent local and outside activity. And I wouldn't necessarily be in full agreement on that. Like you said, well, with one of the other groups, there's a lot of activity, but what does that mean, right? And I'm going to be honest with you, just like the Business Technology Park, you know, are we doing things within our power? Like, are we reaching out to other successes and finding out, talking to the companies that made their decisions? Hey, what was it exactly that you guys dialed in on? You know, are we refining our approach? And there's so many questions I have in there. It's like, if we did it in-house, I know we could have a lot more value add activity in that, you know, that world. So I'm just very much, as after we talked about it in our planning session, my wheels got spinning more and more and more. I'm like, well, you know what? We have the money for it, and I don't think we need to get away from spending money on economic development, but we ought to be able to see what we're getting for the money more. And again, turn that person into potentially also partial duties or a grant writer. I go back to what Roberta has said a few times, probably leaving millions of dollars on the table right now that we're not getting because we're not as dedicated to it. I think you guys have done a great job with that, but if there's more to be had, again, that person's going to pay for themselves. You know,
There's definitely some departments that are stronger than others, and you can see the ones that are writing grants, we're getting them, which has been nice.
That's a good
Especially
point. Mm-hmm.
Public Works has done a fantastic job.
So, we can kind of take this little piece by piece.
Yeah. Sorry, I just
Well, let
threw a bunch out there,
me
so.
start by saying, as it comes to business licensing, you know, I am your Huckleberry. I will gladly champion that cause.
You write that down, John.
Yeah,
Yeah, is this like the first place you've been that doesn't have that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do not know why we don't do it. I think there's tremendous value in that in a number of reasons. It does not need to be a revenue generator. It can if you want it to be. I've had cities that have make it a revenue generator. I've had cities that don't.
No.
But there's all kinds of reasons to track that and to from a life safety issue to an occupancy to tracking what's been successful and what's not.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So many reasons, yeah.
I will shout from the rooftops that I'm team business license.
Good.
As to bringing things in-house, let me start by talking about the employees themselves when we're talking about an internal economic development person and a grant writer. If you're going to do that right, I think that those are two different people. So a grant writer, the vast majority of grants we're going to be going out for are infrastructure grants. So that person needs to be familiar with infrastructure and how that works. Streets, roads, sewers, not water. I was about to say water. We don't do water. Streets, roads, sewers mostly. Sidewalks. Economic development, their focus is going to be on, as Penny described what economic development is here, that's industry, that's big commercial. And I don't think that those skill sets match. And Penny, if you disagree with me, please feel free. But and the other thing that I would talk about when you bring in that to an the system, and we've had it out of house for so long, there is an untangible importance to the relationships that our partners have developed, especially at that industrial level. So when we bring that all in-house and say we're not going to do this anymore, we are severing those relationships that Lisa and her staff have built for years. And then I'm not just talking here in Leavenworth, I'm talking in Kansas City, nationally. She travels internationally. All of those relationships are gone.
No, I get it. We just can't keep spending money for relationships that so far haven't really panned out a ton. Saving business here locally, and I appreciate it. Please keep it coming, Scott. Saving business locally, you and Penny are heavily invested in those, those activities here. And we have the most to lose on it. Our people have the most to lose on it. So I think we need to divide it up. There's saving business, keep, retaining and all that stuff, but there's like new development. Yeah, there's new relationships that'll have to be made. There's new contacts, other things, but that's kind of part of pulling the Band-Aid off, in my opinion. We'd have to do it sometime. And again, just like, okay, well, we've paid the same amount for X amount of time. And again, I want to stress, I'm not saying they haven't been doing things. I believe they have been. But again, if we're going to spend money on it, then I'd rather have full control over it. Okay. Now, back to what you were saying about maybe two different skill sets. I mostly agree with you on that. But I don't think I would say then first phase is, okay, we have this economic development person, that comes in. I would want to see what they could bring to the table, because I think that, and I agree, infrastructure grants and things like that. I'd love to know what else is out there, though, and I would say maybe there's a way we can develop some skill set there, or, like you said, Holly, talk about, well, what are the other departments doing? Why are some more successful than others? I just think, I would rather explore that and see. We don't have it today, so it's We're not missing anything necessarily. That's kind of like a bonus if we can get somebody that can do that too. But it wouldn't have to be a requirement as far as I'm concerned. So, no, it's going to take some time, and economic development, business development, whatever you want to look at, any kind of development, it is a flywheel cycle. We are looking at most likely 18 months once we start getting all those contacts established. That means the first year, it's going to be a lot of networking, a lot of traveling with this person. Don't have to travel as much these days with everything else, but that's what I would envision the first 6 to 12 months looking like. And then we start measuring success on how many RFIs we're getting, yes, but next levels of conversations, where are we getting, how close are we? In the last several years, I mean, we've had 3 close to the finish line, or maybe second round that, didn't amount, and that's fine. It's just that I think there's ways we can measure this, and we can change it down the road if we're not liking some of the results. But I think it needs to be clearly defined. There have to be metrics in place. What are we doing? And that person can report out regularly, even monthly, to us. But it'll be a little bit painful in certain areas. But I definitely think, once you get those relationships established, and we keep on, put stuff out there. Like I said, I think we have the money for it with some other things that were identified a couple weeks back. So I would definitely be interested to see what that would look like, and that's where my head's at.
If we went this route, couldn't we hire someone who had those national contacts, who had those local contacts?
If you're lucky, now you're going to pay for that.
Yeah.
Salary wise. But I mean, we can't promise that, right?
Right.
And so.
It can be done. I have to do it all the time.
Right, for what I think we're envisioning, right, and this is not theory for me, right? I've worked at a state level for a governor in economic development with local entities. Like, I've seen what it looks like to try to inspire growth. So it's not my first rodeo here, if you will, but it's a specific skill set that you're looking for. You're going to look for certification, right? They have done large development projects before, so you're going to have a relatively narrow pool of folks that have those skill sets, and that also is one you're going to compete with the private sector on. Just so we're clear on that, because if we want them to do that, so do engineering firms, so do construction, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Penny. So let me partially agree with you on that too. We want a mover and a shaker here. We want somebody that can adapt and learn. And I wouldn't necessarily say, unless by law we're required to have a certain certification, I wouldn't want us to limit ourselves. When we hired Scott, we didn't limit ourselves. It's like, okay, there were some things that were put out there. Well, we should have this. Like, well, I'm fine with that, but if he doesn't have that, I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? So, let's get a mover and shaker if we're going to do it. Somebody that's aggressive, a hunter, somebody that's going to go out and really attack the market and really, drive organic growth. I think those people are out there, and they might cost a little bit. But I'd like to look at it. I don't want to hire, I'm going to be very honest, I don't want to hire a deadbeat that's got all the right things on paper. I want somebody that's going to be an evangelist in the economic development world.
Yeah.
Again, just my thoughts right now, but.
I mean, what I'm hearing you say is you're really looking for the ability, from your perspective, for the commission to have that direct control. And it feels like we just haven't been seeing that or getting those results. And this would be, without having an entity to go through for those results, it'd be directly to the commission to show actionable results.
Actionable results, yeah, and measurements, we understand exactly what's going on. And somebody that can be fully devoted to that for the city of Leavenworth. Mm-hmm. We're going to spend the money. I don't want to spend money on a diluted program. I'd rather have a full concentrated program.
So LCDC gets their leads, a lot of them from the Department of Commerce. Would those still go to LCDC because they're the regional, or would they come, if we had this, would we have access to that?
The city can choose. The city can choose who our Economic Development Corporation is. So in essence, what you're saying is we would be the City of Leavenworth's Economic Development Corporation.
Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of changing up contacts.
Or we can, this is, every city and county has to make that decision for what works for them. So in western Kansas, you'll see a lot more where they are countywide, because their population is small, and so that it's in their best interest to kind of pool the resources and do that. In bigger cities, you'll see they might have their own economic development corporation. A city might have one, multiple cities might have one, and the county might have one. So there is no set model. It's really what the governing body thinks would be best for the city. As I mentioned, 2/3 of chambers are traditional chambers. There's a third of chambers in the US that take on that activity. Again, different skill set, different approach, different model, but those are all options on the table for your consideration.
Yeah, there's,
For me, I want to see, you mentioned it a little while ago, having a set of metrics, something to measure productivity by, something to measure success by, and I don't know that I've seen that in LCDC or what is it, the Port Authority, or even the CDB. What exactly am I getting for my buck? And then, it becomes a matter of, we have to determine what the criteria of success are. And are you meeting this? Here's the criteria we want you to meet. And you've got a set amount of time to show us you're moving towards it, if not actually achieving it. And I want to see that whatever we decide to do, whether we decide to go ahead and get our own,
100%.
or go with the, stay with the others. I want to be able to tell them, okay, here's what we need to see. We're the city of Leavenworth, and we know you're working for the whole county and every city in the county just about. But here's what we need. What they need is important for them. Here's what we need. We need to see that you've done this, and you've done this, and you've done this. And if you're just doing the same thing over and over and over again, well, that's obviously not meeting the criteria we want to set up. We want to see you turn around and achieve, accomplish what you're supposed to accomplish by meeting these criteria, and then let's see, did it work? I mean, if they're just doing the same thing, like I said, if LCDC is just doing the same thing over and over and over again, and, well, we got 18 leads and da-da-da-da, that's nice, you got 18 leads. What have you done with them? And they may be working their butts off, but we don't see that. We don't know that really.
True.
You
Well,
know?
they had, if you look at their project activity,
Yeah.
they did a great job last year getting us out, but I see your point. We didn't get them. But
well, and it's not just that,
It's not
Holly,
just
not
LC
just
it's
like a
not just
1 year,
LCDC.
it's like, well, if we are going to, it's almost more of a question of how can we better use those funds? And if we can really put together our own internal program, have 100% devotion on it full-time for our city, not for our county. God love everybody in our county, but for our city, imagine maybe there were, results we could get from something like that.
could we afford the national marketing that they do on our own?
I know the budget number of marketing for the park, and it's not coming to mind, but, the simple answer is that the marketing isn't the highest amount. The highest amount is the personnel, is the people. So, we'd have to put together some figures, but you're likely looking at a six-figure position for the
Yeah,
type of economic
that's-
development
yeah.
activity. And then you're looking at marketing funds. Let's put that in the $25,000 range if I'm just putting forward a number, which seems about reasonable. So if that's kind of
Travel.
helps provide a guide, that doesn't even include, travel, right? Because this person would be making those relationships, and that requires travel, going to where the site selectors and the companies are.
Yeah.
I think you need only look at, the county just had an economic development person leave recently, and I think their salary was somewhere in the 130 to 150 range. You're looking at that same kind of a number.
Sure, sure.
For a similar level of competitiveness.
Sure.
I think, for what it's worth, my major concern with LCDC has not been with the staff providing and doing what they can to bring in the work. My bigger concern is that it appears that the board has focused more on its other partners that are more of a problem to them, and I think the city kind of feels a little taken for granted at times. in that we have been a more consistent partner, and it feels like we're kind of chasing squirrels sometimes. And I think that's been a frustration level from our perspective, but
Back to what I said, you ought to be able to feel what you're spending money on.
absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, I certainly don't want anybody to take away that we don't have concerns. We certainly do. We just want to make sure that that we are clear-eyed about what any changes we make, what those consequences would be, good or bad, right? So, just want to make sure you have the information you need to make those decisions. So, you know, I'm not as familiar with LCDC's budget as Penny is. My guess would be the city withdrawing would be the death knell for that organization.
Well, that's my guess too. I mean, back to your point of risk there, Scott. Our risk is we have to start fresh with some new contacts. We have to work towards retaining our local businesses anyway, and that's something you already work on, I believe, you know, Penny, right now. So we're not gonna lose business that we're not getting, so our risk factor is very small. Our risk is time in developing some relationships.
Well, if you're talking our small to medium businesses, that hasn't been the space where LCDC and the Port Authority have been our partners. That has been Main Street, that has been Leavenworth County, that has been a little bit the Chamber. So just for what it's worth, that's really not a space that LCDC has participated very much in.
And you said, was it the Chamber right now? You said their funding has been down, right? And their funding is all paid for by independent businesses, right? People pay for what they feel like there's value in, right? So, I don't know. We just can't keep going around in circles forever, you know, and expecting to get different results. That's just not wise.
And obviously, this is something we need to make a decision on tonight. I really appreciate your thoughts, and it,
No, I appreciate your guys' thoughts.
yeah, and it definitely gives us something to think about and look at. And of course, we're short 2 commissioners tonight.
Well, that's the other thing.
And
I'm
I'd
like, I
love to
know,
hear,
yeah.
both of them before we, is this something we can revisit? Is it something that you guys can gather some information on what Griff is suggesting to get some more data for that, and then come back and revisit what that looks like?
That's it. We can do whatever the commission would like. We will be having these conversations in upcoming months as part of the budget naturally. So, you know, that could be at least a mechanism to keep us on track for these discussions. I also have, you know, kind of heard there's just a need for metrics. So as part of that, we could also see, you know, one option is funding as is, and we really are very specific on what we need for that funding. One is reduced funding and some criteria what we want for that funding. And the other option is pulling funding all together and trying to go in-house with that. So we can present the commission with whatever options you think would be best.
Yeah, I guess maybe just some final comments in on this. I really don't think it's super healthy to now put a stipulation out to LCDC, say, okay, well, if you can just give us some better metrics and measurements now. I brought that up a couple times in the past in a couple different years, and honestly, you said it, Ed, not me. You haven't really seen a lot out there, and me neither, but I think it's, you know, just the difference between us being wildly aggressive internally and doing it, managing it ourselves if we're gonna spend the money. So.
I mean, I do want to defend LCDC. I've gone to a couple of their things. They are out working for us. Now, to your point,
Yep.
have they just delivered results?
Well, and again, it's not personal. It's not a slam on anybody. You know, I appreciate what they have done for us, but like I said, it's a question of how are we best using our residents' money, you know, the money that's coming in right now to the city. How are we best using it? And honestly, I want to see some ROI, right? Now I just want to see something probably differently. So, you know, we could be having the same conversation 5 years from now. And, well, yeah, we talked about it 5 years ago, you know? So, anyway.
From an economic development perspective, that is the whole purpose of economic development, is to take the single city dollar and make that matched equally or more by private investment.
Small but mighty, right? $1,600 got a $50,000 project, right? $1,400, you guys host the business symposium. It touches, you know, 30-something people. We paid $20,000 Main Street, and 15 people came in, and they give them a marketing class and some other things. But it's like, sometimes, you know, things just
Yeah, I
don't
thought
pencil out.
15 was, I mean, maybe that's good in Main Street size. I thought that was kind of disappointing, only 15 people. And it could be any number of things.
Well,
that-
yeah, it's hard to get away. Small business is hard to
Exactly,
get
you know,
away.
it could have been, it was done during the day.
Hey, at least they're
Business
doing it, and
owners-
I appreciated that. Like, marketing is good. Well, why don't you guys explore, would you be comfortable with them exploring what a position looks like?
For sure, I was gonna ask that,
Yeah.
actually, yeah, if you guys could put something together, you know, what that would entail, you know, requirements, yeah, maybe skill
Yeah,
set or
like-
something like
Like
that.
you
but-
brought up, it's not just the personnel.
Right.
You know, it's all the rest of it that goes with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, everything down to where they're gonna sit.
That is a good question. I don't know where someone would sit if we hired that position.
Look how big this room is, yeah. Make one other thing too, just to touch on what was said earlier about the business license thing, Scott. I would wanna make sure we have a carve out, so we're not having to charge all of our businesses something to maintain stuff, just to be
And
clear,
I
so.
think that's why we passed on it last time.
Yes, it was.
I mean, it was just another fee, and it was too much. It's too much.
Can you please just, I wasn't here for that conversation. Can you extrapolate on what you mean by that?
So go ahead.
But, well, we were gonna charge them, what was it, 20?
Maybe 20 something
Five.
bucks or whatever to maintain a license on an annual basis, and very much against just charging our businesses one other fee.
Okay.
And so if there was a way, because the concern I think internally was, well, we have to be able to make sure we can maintain that. So that would fund with whatever, 236 businesses we have downtown, whatever it is in our city, that would fund some of that labor. Okay, so we've got plenty of that money that we could easily carve out, you know, maybe it's the transit guest tax stuff, you know, I don't know, but we're not talking a lot of dollars. So instead of just put that on our businesses, because again, you just gave a great testimonial, Penny. What exactly are they all getting? You know, and then we're gonna charge them more money so we can do our jobs better? I mean, it just doesn't make sense, so.
Well, wasn't there something that if they didn't pay that annual fee, that we could close, remember that conversation?
Oh, yes, thank you. I
Yes.
forgot about that, yeah.
Yeah,
And if
for that.
if it wasn't kept as active,
Yeah, then we
we
could,
would close our business. And no way in heck am I for something like that,
Right.
you know? I understand the reason why, but it's like, there's other ways, you
so
know?
if we could get around it without a cost,
You have essentially taken away the only two reasons why somebody would bother updating their business license,
Okay.
been doing that, right? So the reason you have the fee and you have the enforcement action of it is to require them to do that. If you say, hey, you need to come get a business license, and they're like, why? And it's like, well, we require it. Okay, well, what's the punishment if I don't? Okay, well, they're not gonna do it.
So then, maybe the way we do it is that we say, hey, you opt in, we get everybody on board, you gotta be part of this, and we're gonna assume that you're not active if you don't renew. And if you're not, we're gonna consider that you're not. You know, I mean, I bet there's another way we could go about making sure that we keep an active list. And if there's not, Scott, I mean, you can laugh in my face and it's okay, but
I'm not
maybe
laughing,
we
I
could,
just-
no, but maybe we could look at that and try another option to say, well, look, you know, we need to know, right? We wanna be connected. And if somebody's expired, like, okay, we're gonna consider you not active anymore, and then we should be able to determine with activity what's happening, right? We've got 75% of businesses that are engaged, 25% that don't really care, they don't see the benefit of it. I don't know what that would look like.
and to be fair, like, I don't know about you guys, but I kinda came in late on that, and I wasn't really understanding how business license really worked, what other cities have done, and so maybe a refresher on that. I think you guys had that conversation, and then I came in and it was like, are we gonna do this, are we not gonna do this? And,
Yeah, it was a thought, and then I
Yeah.
think it turned into more of like, okay, well, this is what it looked like when you
right,
came on board.
and so
yeah.
maybe an education to us on
Sure.
what a business license program would look like, what. 'Cause
With the benefits.
Really a
We're
study
just
session.
operating
Study
blind
session,
on
what
some
do
of
other
this stuff, and
cities
so
do?
maybe there's just,
Yeah.
that's the problem, maybe there's another solution, but.
And it sounds like you have a really great background on that, so.
I've just worked with them. They generally are relatively the same in the process. It's a
Yeah.
matter of how much the city charges. Raytown had a very complicated system, which I would not recommend, but, you know, Knob Noster charged $25 a business license across the board. And yes, we had a couple people complain, but it became a part of life for businesses. From my perspective, the business licenses are most important really at the point of entry for a business to ensure that they are compliant with code and law, fire requirements and all of that, and to actually be that kind of front door to the city. And it helps us in that the city clerk's office now becomes the point of contact for businesses. Instead of, hey, fire department's come knocking on your door today, police department's coming knocking on your door today, code enforcement's coming knocking on your door today. It's the point of contact is the city clerk's office, and we funnel all of that information through them. And so, we've had complaints just recently of, fire department just showed up at my door. I wasn't there. I didn't know they were there. They were gonna come, and my employee was worried that they were gonna shut our business down because they were gonna fail a fire inspection or whatever. And part of that business license process is it helps establish that relationship. It puts something that the city puts on the table that says, here's our tool to manage this. If you are in compliance with this, you don't have anything to worry about. And so, from that perspective, I think it's a huge help. Now, are there steps we can be taken anyways to mitigate some of those concerns? Absolutely. We don't need a business license to be more public facing in some of our inspection services. So we don't. But
I think the reason I brought it up was just mostly because I feel like we just don't have great visibility into what goes on. As many businesses as we do, and that's the only option that I had in my head, so maybe there's other things we could do. Anyway, though.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well,
Cool.
everybody comfortable with the directive?
I am.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, with that, I will take a motion to adjourn for this meeting. Or do we need a motion?
So-
It's a study session. No, it's a study session.
You
We're
can just
done.
adjourn, yep.
We're done.
Done.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
There you go.